The overarching prevailing narrative in major media and the reason for why you have an Israeli foreign ministry guy contextualizing their acts of violence every single time they do it in real time on CNN is so that they can control the narrative and say, no, we're doing precision strikes, targeted strikes. These are all deliberate. It's by design. Don't fucking worry about it. And that way, the only thing you see on social media, which, older generations already don't really trust or are scared of unless it like directly confirms their biases, right? Like the anti-vaxxer shit or QAnon or whatever, is basically dished out with or brushed away with a Pallywood narrative. When you have Clarissa Ward of CNN, decorated fucking journalist, now showing a baby and a 20-year-old engineering student who was victim to Israel's not indiscriminate, precise striking, then it turns a lot of people's attitudes. Then it changes a lot of people's minds. Wait, okay, let's start with Gaza. Never mind. Let's start with Gaza. We'll talk about Nicki Minaj and Kai. I'll save that for a little bit. We have been trying for many weeks. CNN's Clarissa Ward actually is able to get into Gaza to witness the Gazan humanitarian crisis, which is like pretty important. I will say this is much respect to Clarissa, because shit's not easy right now. It's not easy to get in there. I don't know how the fuck she was able to do it, but I'm glad that she did. I'm glad that she got Israel to let it happen at least. When we get Megan Thee Stallion, whenever she wants.
Now to try to get into Gaza. It has been impossible for us up until Tuesday. We were able to travel inside with some medical volunteers who are working at a newly established, newly built field hospital that has been set up by the United Arab Emirates in the southern part of Gaza. As you know, the southern part of Gaza is now very much the focus of Israel's military operations. That is exacerbating an already dire humanitarian catastrophe and leading to record numbers of civilian casualties, as we saw for ourselves. You don't have to search for tragedy in Gaza. It finds you on every street, strewn with trash and stagnant water, desolate and foreboding.
So we've just crossed the border into southern Gaza. This is the first time we've actually been able to get into Gaza since October 7th, and we are now driving to a field hospital that has been set up by the UAE.
Up until now, Israel and Egypt...
Fast food again? You are not caring for your health, bro? Yeah, dude. Not caring for my health by eating straight chicken, you dumb fuck. I never eat fucking fast food. I always get my parents to cook me shit. Don't ever fucking come at my diet. Ever, you dumb bitch. Don't ever do that. The fuck? I don't even eat the rice. Look at all that sauce, bro. Damn. What sauce, dumbass? There's a little bit of sauce on the fucking salad. It's hummus.
Egypt have made access for international journalists next to impossible, and you can see why.
Since October 7th, the Israeli military says it has hit Gaza with more than 22,000 strikes. That by far surpasses anything we've seen in modern warfare in terms of intensity and ferocity, and we really, honestly, are just getting a glimpse of it here.
Despite Israel's heavy bombardment, there are people out on the streets. A crowd outside a bakery. Where else can they go? Nowhere is safe in Gaza.
Used to be a stadium.
Arriving at the Emirati field hospital, we meet Dr. Abdullah Al-Nakbi. No sooner does our tour begin when...
So our ambulance, that's a real life.
And this is what you hear all the time now?
Yes. At least 20 times a day.
At least 20 times a day.
Maybe more sometimes. But I think we get used to it.
One thing none of the doctors here have got used to is the number of children they are treating. The UN estimates that some 2/3 of those killed in this round of the conflict.
I can't watch when you eat because metal clanging with plates bothers me like crazy, so this plastic is pog. You've literally never heard metal clanging. I have a noise gate. That's a made-up problem. You've never heard
Women
metal
and
clanging.
children. 8-year-old Janan was lucky enough to survive a strike on her family home that crushed her femur but spared her immediate family. She says she's not in pain, so that's good. Her mother, Hiba, was out when it happened. I went to the hospital to look for her, she says, and I came here and I found her here. The doctors told me what happened with her, and I made sure that she's okay. Thank God. I was sitting next to my grandfather, and my grandfather held me, and my uncle was fine, so he is the one who took us out. Don't cry. But Dr. Ahmed Al-Mazraoui says it is hard not to.
I work with old people, like adults, but the children, something touching your heart.
Touches your heart and tests your faith in humanity. As we leave Janan, Dr. Al-Nakbi comes back with the news of casualties arriving from the strike just 10 minutes earlier.
We just got us. They will send right now 2 amputated young male from just the bomb.
From the Qasaf we just heard, from the bomb we just heard?
This is my understanding.
Okay.
They will arrive to our red areas.
A man and a 13-year-old boy are wheeled in, both missing limbs, both in a perilous state. What's your name? What's your name? The doctor asks. The notes provided by the...
Listen, we've seen this a million times over, right? Since the beginning. But Americans have not. So it's really, really, really important that like CNN watchers also get a personal glimpse into the genocide that the American government is contributing to. So I think this is something that the Israeli government wanted to avoid like the fucking plague, okay? The fact that this is like being played on CNN is really important.
Paramedics are smeared with blood. The tourniquet improvised with a bandage. Since the field hospital opened less than 2 weeks ago, it has been inundated with patients. 130 of their 150 beds are already full.
So let me understand this. You are now basically the only hospital around that still has some beds?
I guess so, yes. Or maybe I'm very sure of that, because they are telling me one of the hospital with a capacity of 200, they are accommodating 1,000 right now. And the next door hospital, I'm not very sure, he said like 50 to 100, it has maybe 400 to 500 patients. So at one occasion he called me, he said, I have 3 patients in each bed, please take any. I told him, send as many as you can.
I mean, we've been here 15 minutes, and this is already what we're seeing.
This is, you heard it, you see it.
In every bed, another gut punch. Less than 2 years old, Amir still doesn't know that his parents and siblings were killed in the strike that disfigured him. Yesterday, he saw a nurse that looked like his father. His aunt Nahaya tells us he kept screaming, "Dad, Dad, Dad." Amir is still too young to comprehend the horror all around him. But 20-year-old Lama understands it all too well. 10 weeks ago, she was studying engineering at university and helping to plan her sister's wedding. Today, she is recovering from the amputation of her right leg. Her family followed Israeli military orders and fled from the north to the south. But the house where they were seeking shelter was hit in a strike. The world isn't listening to us, she says. Nobody cares about us. We have been dying for over 60 days, dying from the bombing, and nobody did anything. Words of condemnation delivered in a thin rasp. But does anyone hear them? Like Grozny, Aleppo, and Mariupol, Gaza will go down as one of the great...
How are you not constantly crying covering this? I'm broken. I'm broken inside. In an irreparable fashion. Yeah, I'm used to it. I know. I've seen it. I've seen it with my eyes for the past 66 days. This is the 67th. You know what I mean? It's like, but can you stop eating while watching this shit, please? Shut the fuck up. Anyway. Ask the baby to condemn Hamas. You know? Do it. This is baby Hamas. So here's the thing. This directly contradicts the overarching prevailing narrative from mainstream media. Okay? The overarching prevailing narrative in mainstream media and the reason for why you have an Israeli foreign ministry guy contextualizing their acts of violence every single time they do it in real time on CNN is so that they can control the narrative and say, no, we're doing precision strikes, targeted strikes. These are all deliberate. It's by design. Don't fucking worry about it. And that way, the only thing you see on social media, which, you know, older generations already don't really trust or are scared of unless it like directly confirms their biases, right? Like the anti-vaxxer shit or QAnon or whatever, is basically dished out with or brushed away with a Pallywood narrative. When you have Clarissa Ward of CNN, decorated fucking journalist, now showing a baby and a 20-year-old engineering student who was victim to Israel's not indiscriminate, precise striking, then it turns a lot of people's attitudes. Then it changes a lot of people's minds. I can fucking yell here every day in perpetuity and show you this death and show you this devastation, and it will fall on deaf ears to certain demographics that will never see it, that will never look to what I'm saying, okay? That will never look to what I'm saying and treat it as though I'm serious or an honest actor that can just like cast it away. Because it's CNN, those very same people will look at that and go, okay, wait a minute, I didn't know it was like this. I didn't know it was this severe.
Great horrors of modern warfare. It's getting dark. Time for us to leave. A privilege the vast majority of Gazans do not have. Our brief glimpse from a window onto hell is ending as a new chapter in this ugly conflict unfolds.
For all the help that's needed.
Now, the death toll in Gaza as a result of Israel's frenzied bombardment currently hovers at roughly 18,000. If you do the math, extrapolating as the UN says that 2/3 of the casualties roughly are civilians, that is about 11,800 civilians who have been killed in just over 2 months. And to give you a comparison, in the first year of the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003, according to an independent research organization, some 7,700 civilians were killed by U.S. forces. Yep. In 20 years in Afghanistan, according to independent research groups, some 12,000 civilians were killed. So in just 2 months, you're now approaching 12,000 civilians, and that's the same amount who were killed in 20 years during the U.S.'s war in Afghanistan. So this is
plus displacement in the millions. No, CNN and other news outlets will now turn on Israel, pretending moral outrage to save face, while the U.S. will tacitly accept the genocide. They are trying to support genocide while taking the moral high ground. No. I mean, there's truth to what you're saying, and what you're saying is exactly how it will play out. But I don't care about that. I care about the way that this is being perceived by a broader public. I also look at this from a very realistic perspective. As someone who's been advocating for Palestinians for the past 10 fucking years publicly, I've never seen this level of like insider humanizing coverage on the plight of Palestinians. It took, tens of thousands of dead civilians to get here. But this certainly changes people's perspectives. Okay? 20,000 Palestinians, UN estimation being that 2/3 is civilians. It's probably even higher than that. Total U.S. deaths in Iraq was only 12,000. Really? No. In the first year, it was civilian. In the first year, the total U.S. deaths for civilians by independent analysis was 12,000 for the first year.
Truly staggering and unprecedented. Phil, Erica?
Clarissa, it's an extraordinarily powerful piece because you're taking us, one, in, and two, to the personal stories I think have been difficult to some degree to come by because of the conflict and the type of conflict this has been. Your reference in the piece to Grozny, Aleppo, Mariupol, you've covered so many conflict zones. You've covered some of the worst conflicts that have happened in the last several decades, if not longer. How would you compare this to those?
It's always difficult to compare conflicts, but I would just say it is so striking that the people of Gaza have nowhere they can go, have nowhere that is safe. They are literally being told to move from the north as the north gets bombed. They move to the south and the south gets bombed. Now they're expected to move to a different area in central Gaza. And let's be very clear, it is not easy to move around right now in Gaza. We saw almost no cars on the streets. People do not have fuel. People are afraid to try to make road runs because of the risk that incurs. And so, of course, you are seeing a horrific impact, not just in terms of the civilian casualties that we talked about, but in terms of the humanitarian crisis. You're talking about malnutrition. You're talking about the spread.
Yeah, if you scale the population, it's even more sinister since Gaza has only 2 million people and Iraq and Afghanistan have some 10x at the start of the century. That, and also it's in a much broader area of conflict. It's an entire country versus a tiny fucking sliver of an open air prison that Israel has relegated these 2.2 million Gazans into. They're internal refugees. So the cruelty is fucking unimaginable, dude. It is so fucked up.
Of preventable diseases. We talked to the doctors who said that they're treating cases of sepsis and patients are nearly dying, where these should be straightforward operations that can't be performed. They described one incident where a man had worms in a wound on his head because there is such a lack of sanitary, any sanitary environment in which to perform surgeries or operations. So this is a crisis of epic proportions, and the fact that humanitarian aid workers do not have the access that they need just makes it all the more staggering. One extra point that I really need to make here, Phil, because I think it's important. This was our first time being able to gain access into Gaza, but the journalists in Gaza have been doing heroic, extraordinary.
What the fuck is going on with the CNN coverage, man? What's happening? This is like the second time this shit happened.
This deadliest conflict for journalists.
Yeah, this is the other part of the coverage that I'm like genuinely shocked that the Western media didn't immediately get into. Journalists in the United States of America are like, in many instances, just petty fucking assholes. But there is one thing that they care about, which is like journalism being under attack, right? They love talking about how, a journalist, even in a fucking foreign ally, and certainly in a foreign adversary, whenever a journalist is like under attack, they see it as like the entire profession being under attack. But this is the first time I've ever seen them like straight up not even fucking talk about it.
Wound on his, they just had and cried none at time doing heroic access into Gaza. But the journalists in Gaza have been doing heroic, extraordinary.
No, it's just broken. Shatter, who told me to fucking refresh, it's just broken.
They have paid such a high price for that. This is the deadliest conflict for journalists that we have seen in decades. More than 60 journalists in Gaza alone have been killed in the last 2.5 months. That is according to the Committee to Protect Journalists. So you have a perfect storm here with massive bombardment, an inability to create safe zones, an inability to get humanitarian access where it's needed, and incredibly brave journalists who are doing everything they can to tell the stories and bring the reality to the world. But the frustration of international journalists who can't get in to try to complement and supplement their efforts.
It is remarkable and such an important picture that you paint of all of those challenges.
Why'd you say New Philly D Thumbo? Why people are freaking out about the new nudity rules of Hasan Piker? Oh, I made it into a Philly D Thumbo again.
Okay. In this moment, I was struck by in that field hospital, so much of what we've talked about has been what is needed in terms of medical supplies, as you just pointed out, and what that can mean, but also the electricity. And there was so much talk about fuel in the beginning and fuel being needed to run generators at hospitals. How that field hospital that you were at, how was it able to operate and to run some of those machines, and is it at risk?
So, Erica, because that field hospital is operated by the Emirates and because the Emirates have a normalized relationship with Israel, they are able to get supplies in, get fuel in a way that the vast majority of hospitals in Gaza are not. And even they face very real challenges, endless bureaucracy, onerous waits at the border trying to get those supplies in. But what the doctor said is,
what is happening with this coverage,
Gazan
man?
hospitals are referring their patients to the Emirati field hospital. They're coming in a very bad state of shape.
Fuck. Let me explain something to you. Chat. Let me tell you something. This is one of the first instances where you are watching this atrocity happen. Like you're watching the impact of Israel's bombing campaign, and there is no Jonathan Concuncrius on the side of the fucking screen with his big ass Frankenstein ass head going, oh, this is a totally valid act of terror. We had to do it. That's the first fucking time you're seeing a white American woman, a white blonde lady, a respected journalist, a respected conflict reporter, and no fucking contextualization whatsoever is occurring. 67 fucking days it took. 67 fucking days it took. Think about that. Think about how important it is. Think about how important it is that this level of like contextualization occurs. That's precisely the reason why they won't do it.
They don't have proper tourniquets even, which are a crucial thing in terms of stopping the bleeding. They don't have proper painkillers. The doctor told us they're needing to give vast doses of painkillers to people who are in extraordinary amounts of excruciating pain because these hospitals...
Clarissa Ward does a lot of shit that I don't like personally, but it doesn't fucking matter. Ultimately, all the stuff that she does that doesn't... all the stuff that she does that I'm not fond of actually contributes to her reporting on this now with more credibility.
have just had to ration whatever minimal supplies they have. Also, this field hospital is very close to that border with Egypt. And so really, they are not a microcosm, and they should not give you a reflection or idea of what most Gaza hospitals look like. They are a sort of island, and that is why they are getting so many referrals from these other hospitals that are teetering on the brink of collapse. In fact, many of them just have simply collapsed and are therefore trying to refer as many patients to this field hospital as possible to try to get them some modicum of decent care.
Like you got Clarissa Ward, who was like ducking when rockets were falling around her, as she claimed. Okay. You got her doing that week 1. Okay. You got her week 1 doing that. And now, week fucking however many weeks have passed by now, it's like 70 fucking days almost. Now this is her coverage. Now, I don't like it when she did the other thing, but I do like it when she does this, because the other thing finally contributes to her being seen as like a legitimate person by the broader CNN audience. Why is this happening? It's because of all the pressure that people globally have put upon their administrations. It's because of the severe demonstrations that have occurred over and over again, everywhere, that it's getting to a point where governments can't just turn a blind eye and say, nah, it's fine. We're just going to do whatever we've been doing. We're going to stay the course. We're going to keep Israel. We're going to let Israel do whatever the fuck it wants. That's what it is. You're seeing American allies start to turn. She's not a government official. First of all, as CNN's conflict reporter, she's more of a government official than like a local council district member, okay? Let me just explain that real quick. This is an extension. As far as foreign policy goes, CNN is an extension of the State Department. Mainstream media is an extension of America's State Department and its interests. This, to me, signals something very important, much more important than even like Bernie Sanders saying some shit about Israel. This, to me, spells trouble for Israel and America recognizing that it's on tenuous ground. Israel's actions have gone above and beyond, and perhaps maybe even way too fucking far. She says this today. Anthony Blinken talks about it 2 days from now under much more somber tone, under much more somber terms. Do you get it? Americans almost all agree on what they have to do overseas. Why do you think Americans think Assange's foreign policy is shit? Yes. Okay. Are you going to fight for anti-porn the same way as you fight for anti-gambling? No, because I believe one is a genuine vice. The other is not. You know you're doing human rights atrocity when Pootie Poo calls you out? Yeah, I know. No, I think that the most suicidal addiction, the most suicide-prone addiction is not the same as like fucking not being able to put the porn down, okay? Because your brain is broken. Also, imagine coming in here in the midst of like genocide coverage and being like, I'm going to fight a battle for my favorite juicer. Like, shut the fuck up, dude. If you don't want to do either of it, don't do either of it, okay? It is worse? Sure. Anyway. I guess Gooner lives don't matter. Okay, we're done. We're done. We're kind of wonder why or how Israel even let her in. I don't know how she snuck in. It is very interesting. She went in with the UAE for sure, but I don't know how. Anyway, through the Rafah border, yes, but it's I don't know why. Does Egypt not allow crossings along Rafah for journalists? I doubt Israel would want Clarissa Ward to go in without an IDF without like an IDF troop. Israel has allowed American and Western journalists to go into Gaza, but they have to go in with IDF. And Israel does have some level of control over the Rafah border with Egypt. So, as she also brought up, which is precisely the reason why I'm confused as to how she was able to get in or whether Israel allowed it or not. And I don't think Israel would allow this to happen because when you go in with an IDF, with a troop, with a battalion, they say it's for protection, but it's also because like they don't want to kill you on accident or deliberately. But the other reason why they let you go with the IDF escort is because then IDF gets to literally comb through your footage to make sure that they have full editorial control. This is known. This is a thing that Fareed Zakaria talked about like literally a month ago. So I'm genuinely shocked that she was able to get in there. I'm glad that she's getting in there. Did you ever cover the accusations that the IDF executed children in that school? No, I did not cover it. I looked into it a little bit, but I did not personally cover it on the broadcast. Anyway.
I will continue to be struck by the line, no one's listening. It seems like every patient either wanted to say or was saying to you. Clarissa Ward, it's remarkable work, and to your point, there are dozens of journalists on the ground there that have lost their lives covering this. There are dozens still there covering it every day, have lost family members. And your work coming in and supplementing that and adding to it is incredibly important. We appreciate your time as always. Thank you.